Thank you. Thank you very much.
5 decades, eh?
I know. Well, it's hard to believe, really, because when you start off, you don't actually think of going on like this. Particularly when I started, rock and roll was in its infancy, and everybody said we were one-hit wonders, and most of us believed that.
That was a long time ago. Did you remember your first hit? You must do.
Yeah, Move It was the first record I ever made, and I always say to people, I was really lucky, you know, because I kind of started at the top. You go to number 2 in the charts with your first record, and obviously from then on it's downwards for a while, but I was very, very fortunate with that record, and I still sing that, Michael. I still do Move It in my stage set. It's the first record I recorded 46, you said 50 years almost, but it's getting there.
It is,
I think
45
it's 46
years. 45, 46 years.
But I can still remember it, yeah, clear as day.
And I mean, it was just a different era, a different time, wasn't it? Much different than it is now for the music industry.
I mean, things do to change. I don't think it's just in the music industry. It's changed in all the facets of show business have changed. I think within the musical world, it's changed rather drastically in that when, for instance, I started and then when the Beatles came along, we had people that nurtured our careers. You know, Norrie Paramore, the late Norrie Paramore was my producer of
You were
records.
in it for the long haul, weren't you?
Well, they helped you to look at the potential of longevity.
Yeah.
Whereas I have a feeling now that the big dreadful change is that bands come and go. I hear singers and I think, wow, these are really good people, really sing well, and then 2 or 3 years later, they've gone.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that they don't want it, Michael, I don't know, but I have a feeling that quite often it's not on the cards, it's not on the menu, because they want to just wheel in somebody else when it's the first flop.
What's interesting, actually, about you, too, is that the perception of you now, the younger audience, you're this sort of squeaky clean, Cliff Richard and all that sort of thing. And, of course, you're the bad boy of pop. I remember it. I remember mums getting horrified by the thought of their daughters buying your records.
I know.
It's true, isn't it?
And well, it is true. I suppose it is true, because I did get this kind of these reviews that said I was a crude exhibitionist. Right. But my theory is, though, that in Britain here, we hadn't really got into that rock and roll. The whole rock and roll business was still very much American. And I have to say, you know, people like myself who were born when we were born were lucky enough to have as our tutors Elvis and Jerry Lee and Ricky Nelson and Buddy Holly and Gene Vincent. I mean, wonderful, wonderful people that we kind of...
They're the bad guys, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're the influences that created us. So I think in Britain, the journalists wanted to have, you know, Britain's answer to. And they created that in my shape, but I soon discovered that there was no answer to Elvis. I mean, the guy was the first. He's the man that put the face and the shape to rock and roll. And whether you be Michael Jackson or Cliff Richard or whoever, we all still pull the shapes the way he did them.
There was that face, because he uses a lip, you see that, used to go...
Yeah, well, my lip... I must talk to John about this. You know, it was easier when my top lip, John, was a little bigger, because you know... I know, well, please.
And you used to do all that pelvic stuff, too. And I mean, the people used to write letters to the Times.
Well, they did, and the funny thing is, I'm better at it now. Well, if you watch some of the old Elvis clips, there was a step that I'd like... It's never long enough for you to sort of learn what it was, but there was something he did across the stage. But when I saw, if you watch Loving You and all those early movies, it was much more the fact that he was a physical presence. He had it. There's no doubt about it. When he was on the Ed Sullivan Show with Frank Sinatra and whoever else it was, as far as I'm concerned, the only person that drew my attention was this black-haired guy with the sort of black on his top eyelids, and he looked like some kind of... There was animal magnetism.
Yes, yes.
And it was just fantastic.
Did you ever meet him, Joe?
Yes, I adored him.
Did you?
Our children went to the same school, and he would come in a cape. And he used to say to me, they won't leave me alone. I said to him, take off the cape. I
That's exactly right.
Come in the cape.
Well, what's interesting, too, about your career is the way that at times in your career... It's what Joan was saying about critics. So you've had your critics, and people have been very negative about you. And there's been a huge disparity between the way you sell records, 260 million records, and the perception of critics. And some people in the industry, I mean, for instance, radio stations that wouldn't play your music.
Well,
why is that?
Well, I don't know about radio stations. I mean, you can't force people to play your records. I mean, otherwise I would. But one can't. So I've been very philosophical about that. Maybe that's part of the change. Maybe I just have to find another way of selling records. And in spite of that temperature, that's the kind of the heat that we have now, some of us. Millennium Prayer, for instance, was the biggest selling British hit single of that year. It sold 1.4 million in Britain alone.
That was the Lord's Prayer set to music, wasn't it?
Yeah, it does sound like, John. But
No,
I mean, when the idea was given to me, I thought, this is not the Lord's Prayer to Auld Lang Syne. And then I heard the demo and I thought, wait a minute, though. You know, I love both those things. Why can't we put them together? So we did. But why I'm mentioning it because it means that you can have success without the things that you used to have to help you have it. So, okay, I may have to do more TV, I may have to talk a lot more on whatever radio stations. We met at a radio station recently. You just do have to work a lot more as a 60-something-year-old than I did when I was 18.
But you look 11, so let's not go. I'm talking to you.
I just got to get...
You don't have to do anything, I'm sitting close. You look just fine.
It's my top lip, Joan, I tell you. I saw a photograph of me in profile and I was talking to my mother and I was about 18 and the top bit here touched my nose. It's gone.
So what do you do?
I go about like this.
No. What do you do? You altered it?
No, it's gone. I mean, my lip, it changes with age.
He means because he's getting older.
It's kind of... I wasn't going to say getting older, but...
Oh, you mean your top
she's right, it's dropping.
No, but it looks... But you look great.
Do I?
And just say thank you, God, and move on.
I do.
Just look great.
But have you had any plastic surgery at all?
No, if I was going to have a full thing done, I don't think there's any point in keeping that secret.
Oh,
I think it's more difficult for men, though.
Much more.
Why?
Men, yes.
Well, because from what I've heard, and I have checked it out, the surgeon will sometimes make an incision here and lift everything up, which is fine if you're a woman because your eyebrows will arch. And women look great with arched eyebrows, and if they haven't got them, they strip them off and paint them on. Well, I don't want to be someone who looks, you know, like that. I did try Botox, though.
Oh, of course.
But my eyebrows fell down.
Well, that's you have to just stand up straight after you have it done for an hour.
But I can't see any point. It's such a common thing these days that particularly if we are in front of cameras all the time, there's people pointing cameras at us coming out of restaurants or whatever, you might as well try and give them their money's worth. Yeah, if I wake up in the morning and my face is on the bedside beside me, I'm afraid no one will know about it but me. And her surgeon.
Well, what about going back to this perception thing too? I mean, if there's been a negative perception of you, do you think that some of it might have been due to the fact that about your religion, about your Christianity, in that a lot of people find it embarrassing when people talk about their religion and people announce a situation?
Yeah,
is there something in that, do you think?
Well, there may be, except that there's nothing I can do about it. I have a faith, and I've been honest about it. For instance, if I go and do, for instance, some charity gospel concerts, I make sure that the public know that's what they are. That means if you don't want to come, you don't have to waste your money coming to them. And I've tried to be really honest about it. And I think over the years, though, I'm not sure it really matters anymore, because in 1966, Billy Graham was here and he invited me to come on to the platform. And in those days, you know, that Thursday night was for the young people. Joan, they used to invite me into that one.
So sweet.
I know. But anyway, that year, that was in the July or in summer of '66, in the Christmas time of '66, I was at the London Palladium doing Aladdin, and I'd made this public declaration that I now had this new faith. And at the Palladium, we broke all the box office records. So I guess people realize that above everything else, we remain human beings. We remain people who love and lose love and, you know, disagree and have faith and different kinds of faith. And I think they're beginning to realize that it's necessary that we remain human.
What do you take from your faith? I mean, how important is it? I mean, is it part of your job, part of being a singer? Does it inform?
It's a guide, really. For me, I find, you know, God's never actually spoken to me in a voice.
I was going to ask you that. You know, there's no dialogue.
No, I remember reading an article once when I did that show called Time. There was this big article in the paper saying, God speaks to star backstage. And then the article said that God had told me to leave the show. Well, it's close. It was my manager told me to leave the show. and I don't know, I had never given an interview. I phoned the office and said, did you talk to this person? They said, no. So they concocted a story. And that reminds me, you were mentioning about smoke without fire. People say there's no smoke without fire. I'm afraid that does not work anymore. People will absolutely fabricate a complete story where there is no smoke or fire. They create it themselves.
What about the business too of yourself and a family? You're 63 now. You've never got married or engaged or anything like that. I mean, do you at your point in your life now where you might regret not having formed a relationship?
No.
No?
No, not at this stage now. I mean, from the age of about 20 to 35, I would probably have given a totally different answer. Maybe I've just got too used to being single.
You're in the bachelor stage.
Yeah, I like it. I like it because I know one thing for certain is that if you do get married, you must commit yourself to that. Maybe that's the reason why there are as many divorces. And of course, listening to Joan earlier, you know, if women fake everything, I'd run better off without it. But I actually, and I'm not being selfish, it's a choice. You can either marry or not marry. And I didn't decide very early on not to marry. It just happened that I reached this stage and I'm not married. But I like my life. You know, I like the fact that, I'm going to start again. If I did marry, I would feel totally committed to the marriage and my partner.
Yes.
Now, I would believe that she and any family that might ensue would demand and should get my total concentration. Well, I find it difficult now in my world.
You're set in your ways.
I can say, yes, I'll be there next week in Paris. Yes, no, New York. Yes, I'll be in New York. And I find it really easy. And I'm just lucky, I guess.
But you say that, but isn't there a sense of missing something? I mean, isn't the point of success and money and all that, and achievement, isn't it that somehow you can actually share it with somebody?
I have a lot of friends. I will never, ever be alone. My house is never empty. A friend of mine came and said, this is like being in a rectory here. I mean, people come and go all the time. And I've got 3 sisters. They've given me now 11 nieces and nephews, and about 4... I'm a great uncle. I mean a great uncle. I mean, I'm a great uncle too.
Yeah,
but...
you're a great
Yes. So, I mean, I feel, and I've had the children over so many times and have wonderful times with them. You know, when the 3 young girls, they've grown up now, but when they were really young, I said to the girls, you've got to come over, spend the weekend with Uncle Cliff. And they said, without Mum and Dad? And I said, of course, come in. And I've had all that. It was wonderful. But what was really good as well, they went home on Sunday night, and I got my cornflakes out, watched television, and I thought, oh. So I feel as though I have a really perfect life, but I don't feel guilty about that.
No, should you feel guilty about it? I just wondered if you... So I thought, am I missing something? That's all I thought.
No, it may have passed my mind a few times in the past, but as I'm getting older, you know, you do come... No, Joan, I don't know why I'm looking at you.
I don't know. I thought you were looking at him.
As you get older, Jamie, you will realise that there are things that are beneficial with age, and I know you...
What?
Now, this is intriguing. Can you just save it for a moment, because we'll come back to this.
Oh, okay.
I want you to actually... Because I think you're absolutely right, and she needs telling these things. No, really. Play for it for the moment. Thank you very much indeed.